Hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here. My name is Jonathan Land. I'm a senior at Weston High School, and I'm excited to present about biomimicry for sustainable systems design. Now, before I start, I really want to recognize how much of an honor it is to be here to speak at a conference that commemorates James Penner's legacy and his passion for the environment. I was close with James as a freshman at Thayer, and it's really great that Thayer Academy and the Penner family have put together this conference to really honor him. Now, as I get started, I want to recognize that these ideas that I'm about to present today are not completely original. I'm really thankful to Fritjof Capra, Janine Benyus, Danella Meadows, and all of these other groundbreaking academics in this space. Now, let's get started. So, biomimicry is all about learning from nature to enhance design. Now, nature has really been around for 3.7 billion years. It's sort of a master at creating sustainable systems. And as we all in this room at this conference for sustainability are looking to really build a more sustainable and better future, what better thing to model after is there than nature? Now, oftentimes for biomimicry, we think about technology. We think about the burrs of the burdock thistle and how that inspired Velcro. We think about the kingfisher's beak and how that made bullet trains more aerodynamic. And 6-year-old me was looking at the spines of seagull feathers and wondering if I could create a more sustainable type of plastic. Now, if I'd actually been able to do so, I'd probably be presenting about that right now. But for better or worse, I'm here to talk today about biomimicry for systems. Now, what are systems? And that requires us to look at systems thinking a little bit. Systems thinking is all about analyzing the world through wholes and relationships rather than just their individual elements. All systems have 3 qualities. They have these individual elements, they have the interrelationships between them, and they all come together to serve a greater purpose. Let's look at our economic systems. I'm sure all of you are very, very familiar with this if you've bought anything in a store once in your lifetime. Now, in the economy, there are individuals, there are businesses, there are organizations, and all of them sort of come together and interrelate through this diagram called circular flow. Now, in an economy, really, our goal is to create more GDP, drive more productivity, end unemployment, things like that. And that is sort of the purpose of the economy. Now, there are many other types of systems. There are living systems from the organelles within the cell to the biosphere itself. And really what's cool about living systems is that there are sort of natural laws that you can find at every single organizational level of these systems. There are organizational structures. Oftentimes in companies, these are hierarchies. We have healthcare systems, we have digital systems. You all have probably experienced systems many times in your life, and that's what makes systems thinking widely applicable. Now, let's take a look at one of our current systems, the economic system. Our economic system is wasteful, it's competitive, it's greedy, destructive, and efficient. We operate under a take, make, waste economy. We sort of take from nature, we produce something with it, and then we throw it away. We have a competitive economy, and while yes, it does drive prices down and really allow us to innovate, it also means winners and losers. It means debt. It means hierarchies, and those are all things that are bad for our system as a whole. We have an economy that's greedy. We sort of operate under the assumption that sort of we can grow perpetually, and that's really a myth because there are limits to how much we can develop and how much we can build. Now, our economy is also very destructive, and we really don't factor that in when it comes to our costs. We think about the cost of production, the cost of labor, the cost of materials, but we don't really consider the cost of putting pollution in the air or pollution in the water. We don't think about the asthma effects of that sort of thing either. And our economy is very, very efficient. It's designed to do so, and I'll really look to see why that's a problem in the next slide. Now, supply chains are a case study on this. They operate under a high-efficiency system under just-in-time economics, and really, this is all good and great because companies want to sort of keep their goods on the shelves for as little time as possible. They want to make sure that supply is just above demand so that they can make as much money as possible, and that's really great until something like COVID happens, and you have demand that greatly outstrips supply, and companies aren't able to meet that. And that means untapped potential as well. There's $1.14 trillion in out-of-stock items in 2020, and we have people fighting for toilet paper in Walmart because we have shortages of toilet paper and shortages of microchips in 2021, and that all leads to a dip in production that really we would have been able to mitigate if we had more resilience in the system. And that comes to the conclusion that efficiency sacrifices resilience. Now, why does that matter? So let's take a bigger glimpse of what this sort of looks like in the big picture. In ecology, there's this thing called the adaptive cycle. It's a Mobius strip that goes through 4 different phases. It has growth, it has conservation, it has collapse, and reorganization. And nature is really great at sort of entering back and reorganizing itself, so it actually becomes a loop. Oftentimes, of course, like nature has failed, there's been mass extinctions, and species have sort of exited that loop. But really, it's been really great at sort of getting back into this system. Lodgepole pines, for example, are able to sort of release their seeds during forest fires, during that period of collapse, so that a new generation of forests can sort of grow. And that begs the question, are we on the verge of collapse? And I'd answer that collapse is inevitable. Empires collapse, political structures collapse, ecosystems collapse, economies collapse, and even ages go through very, very icy changes. Now, resilience is all about preparing for collapse, and it's about using these forces of reorganization for good. If collapse is inevitable, we really have to be prepared for it, and what better way to look at it than through biomimicry? Now, let's learn a little bit more from nature. Nature has an inherent ability to sustain life after 3.7 billion years. And there are a few laws of nature that, as I mentioned, sort of apply through all these different systems of organization. Sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble with this here. Nature runs on sunlight. Nature, in sunlight, of course, is an infinitely renewable resource. Nature only uses the energy it needs. It doesn't produce a ton of energy and sell it to people in a way that destroys the planet. Nature fits form to function. Nature recycles everything. Nature values cooperation. There's this beautiful imagery of redwood trees that grow 200 feet high, but their roots are only 12 feet deep. And that's because they interlock with one another to keep each other from falling. Nature banks on diversity. We wouldn't have evolution if we didn't have diversity. Nature demands local expertise. Nature curbs excesses from within. And nature taps the power of limits. It doesn't believe in the myth of perpetual growth. Now, let's look at some solutions in a systemic manner that are inspired by nature. And let's return to our model of the current economic system. If we want an economic system that's inspired by nature, we want to make sure that it's not wasteful, but circular. We want to make sure that it's not competitive, but cooperative. We want to make sure it's not greedy, but modest. We want to make sure it's not destructive, but restorative, not efficient, but resilient. Now, that also requires us to reimagine the purpose of our economies. Instead of quantifying GDP and GDP per capita and quantifying growth in that way, we need to qualify growth. We need to be able to differentiate between good growth and bad growth, the growth that destroys our planet and the growth that is actually restoring our planet, the growth that builds communities physically and spiritually, and the growth that builds the health of the planet and all of its inhabitants. And that way, we can really build a sustainable future together. Now, really, there are many nature-inspired solutions beyond the circular economy, like industrial symbiosis, regenerative agriculture, and microgrids that I'll get to more in detail in my workshop later today. And really, like, this sort of begs the idea that nature's values can be applied everywhere. They can be applied to agriculture, they can be applied to industrial systems, and all of these different systems that we've all interacted with on the daily. Thank you very much.